Hi, before we start exploring numbers, I've got one neat little trick for you. Instead of launching Jupyter Notebook the same way that we have seen on the past lectures, by searching for command line and then typing Jupyter Notebook, we can do it in a much simpler way. In here, I'll type Notepad to open the Notepad. Just type those commands. I'll type cd space dot dot and I'll type Jupyter Lab. The first command will change directory from the current folder to the parent folder. Then we will run Jupyter Lab. We are doing this because when we run this script, we will run it from the desktop. So when it opens Jupyter Lab, the root folder will be the desktop. If you want this, fine. If you don't want this, just type change directory, which is shortened by cd, and then dot dot. I'll choose file, save as. I'll choose save as type, all files, and I'll save it as jupyter.cmd. I'll choose save, and here you go. If you double click on the file, it will launch Jupyter Lab just as we did the last couple of times. As you can see, we are in the parent folder. Here is the notebook that we have worked with the last time. Okay. Before we explore numbers, we need to explain what a comment is. Any line of Python that starts with a pound sign or hash, this means that this is a comment. The interpreter ignores this line. Now let's start working with numbers. We have two types of numbers, integers and float. So integer numbers are 2, 5, 20, etc. For example, 1.5 and 102.05, etc. Any number with a decimal point, this is considered a float. I'll just put a table here for the mathematical operations. By the way, to create a table, you have to use this symbol is called pipe. It's above the enter key. So to create a table in here, for example, I'll just type 1. In here, I have to type this will create a table. Okay. So let's continue with our mathematical operations. To add two numbers, you can simply use the notebook as a calculator. So to divide 5 by 2, to subtract 15 minus 6, and so on. A few operations in here worth mentioning. For example, 15 divided 4, this will give a floating point. There is an operator called floor division. If I divided 15 floor division 4, it will give us 3, which is the integer part. If I use the modulo operator, which will give us also 3, because 15 divided 4 will give us 3. 3 multiplied 4 equals 12. The remainder is 3. For example, 10 divided modulo 6 will result in 4. Okay. There is also a shorthand for some of the mathematical operations. For example, let's add a new table in here. Let's assign x to 10. If I type x plus equal 6, I can display the value of variable x by using print function. Print the value in x will display 16. I can also display the value in x by just typing x in the cell and execute it. So let's continue with the shorthand operators. For example, x minus equal 3 will result in x equal 13. Let's try another one. X multiply equal 3. If I wanted to display the value of x directly, I can add another line to the cell and type x. This will display the value of x. Okay. One last thing is to divide it by 5, for example, x. Okay. How about if I have more than one operation in the same line? For example, 2 plus 4 multiplied by 6 minus 7 raised to the power 2. Think about it. What do you think the result of this operation? Okay, let's execute the cell and check the result. The result is minus 23. Why? Because there is something called the order of operation. The order of operation is very simple. First, the parentheses, then the exponent, then multiplication, division, modulo, or even integer division. And then the last thing is the addition and subtraction. So we can always prioritize our operation by putting it into a parenthesis. 2 plus 5 multiplied by 6. This is elementary school math. Minus 3 raised to the power 2. Okay. We have been introduced to the print function as we have seen earlier. We want to print a message or we want to print the value of a variable. So I'll introduce you to another function. It's a simple function, but instead of printing something to the screen, it will take an input from the user. The function is called input. Inside input, you will type the message that you want to display to the user. Please enter your age, for example. I leave a space at the end so that there will be a space between the value the user enters. Of course, you will not notice it in here since this is a graphical interface, but in the command line, you will notice it. If I execute the cell, an input box will appear on the screen. If I type 3 and execute it, it will just print 3. If I want to save this in a variable, I have to put this into a variable. So I'll name a variable age and then put it equal to the input function. This means that whatever the user will input, it will be assigned to the variable age. So let's execute the cell. I'll type the age is 40 and then enter. Now if we print the age variable, it will be 40. But if you wanted to know the type of a variable, we can use a function called type and then pass the value of the variable inside the function. As you can see, the type of variable age is a string. We will see the string data type in the next lecture. But right now we want to convert the age variable instead of a string to an int so that we can apply some mathematical operation on it, because we cannot use it like this. Age plus 3, for example, it will produce an error because it cannot concatenate a string to an int. Okay, so to convert the age variable from a string to an integer, we use something called typecasting. It's a very simple. We use int and then pass the variable in here. Now it's converted to an integer. So we can enhance the code a little bit better. I'll just copy this cell and paste it in here by pressing C to copy it and V to paste it. I'll delete this cell, and in here, instead of assigning the age directly to the input, I'll use typecasting to convert the input to an integer and then assign it to the age. If I click and enter the age, now if we make some mathematical operation, it will work correctly. One more data type to discuss in this lecture, which is a Boolean. A Boolean is a true or false value. For example, is free equals true. Please notice that the first character in true or false is capital letter. Is active is false. Of course, is free or is true is a variable name. You can name it whatever you want, but it's advised that a variable have a meaningful name. Okay, so since we have introduced a new data type, we will have some operations in it. These are the operations related to the Boolean data type. These are called Boolean operations. Okay. For example, is free and is active. What do you think the value will be? This is an AND operator, which means that both variables should be true to result in true. If either one of the variables is false, it will result in false. For example, is free and true will equal true. Okay. Or will be set to true if either of the variable is true. For example, is free or is active. The last operator is not. It will reverse the value of the variable. For example, not is free, not is active. Okay, now we have completed the introduction to the integer and Boolean data type. In the next lecture, we will explore the string data type. Thank you for watching and join me in the next lecture.